Every month, I'm like, this month's gonna be better. And then it never is. Let's talk about what I watched in September. In September, I watched a grand total of 2 movies. This is the lowest number of movies to date, but I did have fun watching both of them. I watched Bill and Ted Face the Music and Give My Regards to Broad Street, both wonderful in their own regards, both giving me what I want, and that is middle-aged men. I didn't really rewatch anything. I was working like 10 hours at my job, so there was just no time whatsoever. I did get to start, finally, One Punch Man. I am so stoked. I love it. It's so great. Saitama is fantastic. I love him to death. The way he's drawn with his stupid little dumb baby face, I love it so much. It delivers on so many of my needs. Plus, I appreciate what they do with the humor of the show, of the whole superhero genre. I really like what they bring through Genos, because I think, in any other show he would be the protagonist because he has every reason to be, but he's not, and I love that. And the character design is flawless. I love the way the characters are drawn. I love the way they all interact. It's so much fun, and the concept's just great. I'm so excited to keep watching. I'm like 4-ish episodes in at this point, so I hope to keep watching later this weekend and just through October in general. I also watched both of Daniel Sloss's specials, Dark and Jigsaw. Daniel Sloss is a Scottish comedian. He kind of objects to his humor being called dark because for him that's just how it is. But his humor, for all intents and purposes, is kind of dark.
There was a man in the front row who was so upset by the joke, his only way of letting me know how angry he was to lift up his shirt, show me his gun, and say, "You're lucky I don't shoot you." And I'm terrified. I've never seen a gun before. And this is what I love about your country, right? Because I think there is one stereotype that is true for most of you, and it's the friendliness, right? There is that just sense of friendliness. There was another American man there. He was realistically as upset by this joke as this man. But he stood up for me, and he did so in the most American way possible. I mean, I agree with you saying, but this is America. This is the land of the free speech. So you keep telling your joke, and you just ignore him. Because if he shoots you, I'll shoot him. Not before? Like, if you're taking requests, before really works for me.
But what I appreciate most about what he does is that he understands how dark humor works. He understands that just saying frightfully offensive things isn't in itself funny. It's not a joke. And so he's able to ease the audience into dealing with some really heavy topics, both from his own life and just from observations of life in general. And they're both really good specials. They're both on Netflix. Strong language warning and content warning, but very much worth it. They're so thought-provoking too. That's another thing I really enjoy about his specials, is I have not stopped thinking about both the central premises of Dark and Jigsaw. They're both very thought-provoking, which I think if you're going to do dark comedy, that's what it should be, is you should make the audience contemplate questions. Don't spell it out for him. Have him contemplate it. And he does a really good job of doing that, and I enjoy it a lot. Laugh out loud hysterical at some of the most awful things. I did read Michael Chabon's Yiddish Policeman's Union. I have never been so sad that film rights lapsed, because for the longest time, this was in the hands of the Coen brothers. This was tailor-made for them. It's a washed-up alcoholic detective on this colony, this Jewish colony in Alaska. It's like alternate history where they gave European refugees a section in Alaska that they could live in. And in this seedy hotel, this kid, I say kid, the guy was in his 30s, he's murdered. And he could have been like a Tzaddik Hador, which is supposed to be like, the Messiah, the second coming of the Messiah, and so he has to untangle all of that. There's lots of eclectic, quirky characters. I say quirky, that makes it sound very two-dimensional, but they're very rich characters, we'll put it that way, and it was tailor-made for them, because the way Michael Chabon writes everything, he has such a way of phrasing things and of describing things that the bizarre thing is I couldn't tell you anything that happened in this book, but I could picture it all very vividly. It's absolutely perfect. And I definitely did appreciate it this time around. Worth checking out if you need a nice neo-noir thing to do. That's what makes it a Coen Brothers film, is it's a perfect neo-noir for them to direct. But no, in all seriousness, I do think it was really good. And then I listened to a whole bunch of things. I listened to so many new soundtracks this month. I listened to the Moody Blues Long Distance Voyager. I have grown up listening to a handful of Moody Blues songs, but I haven't listened to a ton of their discography apart from like greatest hits albums. And Long Distance Voyager is really neat. It feels kind of concept album-y esque, you know? But that one has songs like The Voice and Gemini Dreams, which are probably my favorites from that record, but it's got tons of really neat things. I highly recommend that one. That one's really good. I also listened to Radiohead's In Rainbows. I believe this is my brother's favorite Radiohead album, but it also was fantastic. I think King of Limbs is still probably my favorite, but In Rainbows is really high up there. Probably third after The Bends, if I had to be honest. In Rainbows has really good songs such as Weird Fishes / Arpeggi, I think is how that's pronounced. 15 Step, What a Way to Open an Album. Videotape, absolutely phenomenal. And Jigsaw, Falling into Place. There is a very specific atmosphere that Radiohead is able to conjure, and Tom York's voice is so beautiful. It's an instrument on its own, and it just perfectly blends. You don't often hear bands where the lead vocalist's voice so seamlessly fits with all of the instruments, where it just ebbs and flows in this really beautiful way. Very good album. Definitely enjoyed it. I also branched out in some other ways by listening to Bjork for the first time. I had never listened to Bjork's music, but I was skimming the Rolling Stone 500 greatest albums of all time list, not necessarily to agree or disagree with it, but just to see what made the list, see what the discussions were. And Bjork was on the list a couple times. So I listened to Post and Homogenic. They were both really cool, super atmospheric, and very akin to Radiohead. So if you like Radiohead and you haven't listened to Bjork, listen to Bjork. I was expecting more of a Europop dance sound, and that may have been what she was before, but Post especially bordered on like this industrial rock sound, and I was really into that. Kind of techno, but really heavy. Really, really cool. I especially liked the songs Hyper Ballad, You've Been Flirting Again, and I Miss You. And then from Homogenic, my favorite song is probably Yoga. J-O with an accent, G-A. I also listened to Love, which is technically the Beatles, but it's more because it was produced by George Martin, their producer, and his son Giles. They made it for a Cirque du Soleil show, and it was super neat. I love what George and Giles brought to the music. They brought new things to it by layering things in such a super cool way. Oh my goodness. Some of my favorites of what they did, they took Come Together, Dear Prudence, and Cry Baby Cry, and they knit those together. They took my favorite part of Cry Baby Cry, which is there towards the end, those last 30-40 seconds. Their Drive My Car, The Word, and What You're Doing, phenomenal. That's like just a beautiful summary of Rubber Soul in general, and it was just such a cool thing. I'm gonna have a cool counter because I've said it so often. Their Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, absolutely flawless. They took a song that had kind of like a carnival-esque feel and then wove in something a little bit darker by tying in Helter Skelter and I Want You, She's So Heavy, and it's really neat. It has such a cool effect by the end, and I really like what they did with Strawberry Fields Forever. That was super neat. And then I also listened to Let It Be. Not on vinyl. I don't have a record player yet, but I did find it on vinyl and I'm really excited. So this is the last album that was ever released, but it was recorded, I think, before / during the Abbey Road sessions. But this was mixed by Phil Spector, who frightens me. It was really good. I enjoyed the album. I think I don't know, I can see where people wouldn't like it, and I can see where people like it a lot. I fell in the camp of really liking it. I know it's basic, but I do like Let It Be, the song. I get it, it's basic, but I like it so much. I also really like Get Back. Get Back is super fun. And The Long and Winding Road. I listened to both Phil Spector's version and the Naked version. They do different things. I can see why they prefer the Naked version. It is more stripped down, and it makes me cry because if you sit Paul down at a single instrument and have him play a sad song, I will cry. But it was really neat. I liked what they did with that song in both respects. And then I Me Mine, really cool. I really dig that song a lot. I like what they do with kind of the more soulful verses and then kind of the jauntier choruses. It was really neat. But no, we're into October. There was no way you were going to escape them. No. And that's what I watched, read, listened to in September. What's coming up in October? I don't know. I don't know. It's coming up in October. It's hard to predict what happens in October anymore. But it is spooky month, so I'm going to try and watch some spooky films. I've got some good recommendations from some friends from very long ago. I've been meaning to watch It Follows for forever because a friend recommended it to me, so thank you, Charlie. And I would also like to watch The Conjuring. I think those would be like two good spooky options that I may check out. And as far as reading, you saw that I swore to read 3 books this month and I read 1, so I'm not making any promises to reading any books, but I would really like to read something. I would like to read Burning Down the House. What else is happening in October? I'm working on my long form thing that I hope to be done by November, early November, and then there's another thing that I'm working on with someone else. I am very close to making that announcement. It'll be fun, or I've enjoyed it. I have had fun with it this whole time, but it'll be out there. It'll happen. It'll be soon, and I'm looking forward to letting you all see what that is. Thank you so much for your continued support. I dropped my Classically Abby reaction at the beginning of this month, and the response to that has been so nice, so lovely. Thank you all so much. There are a couple new faces here. Thank you for joining. Thank you for subscribing and having fun, hanging out. Thanks. And the review of Axiom's End, that did really well, so thank you for that too. Your continued support obviously means the world to me. It does boost my day. But yeah, no, thank you so much for watching, for hanging out, for being here. Really do appreciate it. You mean the world to me. I hope you're doing well. I love you. I'll see you next month.